So, everyone, welcome Sabia Wade to the Birth Queen podcast. This is a long time coming. I actually put together that right after I launched Birth Queen, we ended up in the same Essence article about
Yes.
to watch. And you also have been doing the damn thing since that
Yes.
came out in like March.
Yeah,
No,
March.
April. You know what it was? It was Black Maternal Health Week.
So,
21.
yep, the book came out in March, and then April. The timing was like that's when everything was like boom, 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 because it was like the topic, the connection, the this, the that. So yeah, it's been pretty wild. It's been a wild year. It feels like the year's already over, and I know like we're at the end of the year, kind of close, but like I feel like the year. I'm like, okay, I've retired. I'm done. Like, see y'all next year in the spring.
A lot. So let's I have a couple questions that I like to ask, and they're easy ones. So let's start with who is Sabia Wade?
Who is Sabia Wade? I am more of a homebody than people would know. Like when I'm home, I live in Georgia. I am like in the house. Like I don't go anywhere. I'm just like in the house. But then when I'm not home, I'm everywhere, if that makes sense.
Yep.
I am definitely a fire sign. I definitely am very stubborn in like a good way, I think. Like in the sense of like if I want to do something, I'm going to do it. Like I don't understand no, I don't understand maybe, I don't understand any of that. I am a bleeding heart. I like just want everyone to be well. I just want everything to be like one. Like I am a co-parent of 2 kids with my friend. I'm a dog parent of 2. I don't know who's worse, to be honest. Like, I don't know who exhausts me more. I'm a girlfriend now. That's like a new thing that I'm like living into because I've always been the type that like I'm just gonna be single and I'm just gonna venture the world and just whore it up. You know what I mean? But now I'm not doing that. And of course, I'm a doula. I'm an educator. I am an author. I am an activist. And I am someone who really loves carrot cake and most cakes.
I love that.
I love a warm treat.
Love
a warm treat.
A warm treat. Yeah, I'm here for a warm treat, not a cold treat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's my
love a warm piece of fruit, like an apple pie. Like I'm like, yeah. And I'm a plant daddy too.
Cake and a delicious chocolate chip cookie with some nuts in it. I make some.
I'm here for it.
Yep, I like it. So tell us, like, how did you get to where you are? Like, I'm curious because I don't, some of us may have envisioned this line of work. I doubt most of us. I think most of us didn't have a choice. We were called to it. Do you feel called to this work? And when did that calling occur for you?
Yeah. Let's see. Feeling called to this work. I don't know if I felt like if I like consciously ever, even when I was starting to do the work, was like, I feel called to this.
Okay.
I don't know. Let's think about it. But I started off in my like early, I think when I was like 19, 20, I became a nursing assistant. And, at the time I was like, when am I going to be able to do this work? Because this is kind of nasty. But then, like, after doing it and get into it, I really loved caring for people. Like, that was something that I, like, initially knew about myself. I was like, I really love caring for people. Like, this is pretty great. And then also, kind of, like, at the same time, I actually was getting into, like, in my personal life, getting into, like, BDSM and kink and stuff like that. And I was, like, establishing myself as, like, a dominant in that space. Right. And like part of being a dominant in that space is like you really advocate for people that trust you. Right. But of course, again, I'm like 2021. I'm just having fun. Okay. Period. Right. So I'm like doing that whole thing. And through the years, like that first like 20s, mid 20s, I was always either working in a hospital or working in like some type of facility of care, like works with all types of people, HIV, AIDS, all types of gunshot. Like I literally was working with everyone under the sun. And I really just enjoyed my work. Like it, of course it's exhausting, it's tiring in its own way, but I felt fulfilled to be helping other people.
Mm-hmm.
And also like in my kink life, even like people being able to be open with me in a way that they couldn't be with the world and being able to hold that. And so that kind of was happening at the same time. It was like this dual experience. And then one of the last hospitals I worked in was a hospital in Philly. And I was like thinking at the time that I wanted to be a nurse. Like I kept being like, I'm going to be a nurse. Like I'm going to do that whole thing, do. But when I started working in this hospital, I actually had hurt myself. I didn't hurt myself. I was overworked. Okay, period. But like my hand was messed up from like lifting people all the time. So I actually went on light duty. And when I was on light duty, I actually started really hanging out with like the executives of the hospital and learning more about like, why is a patient ratio what it is? And like, what's the thought behind this? You know what I mean? And that's where I started making these connections to like, systems prioritizing money over people. And also seeing how that reflected in my work, right? Like how I was overworked and how nurses were overworked and how like it always felt like this choice of like quantity over quality. And I was also seeing how, Black folks were coming in, like how they were dealing with their health issues, their resources, this and the other. And also realizing that because I was a part of the hospital system, there was only so much I could say to them. Right. So like I was limited because I'm like, I need to make sure that I can secure my job. Like, right. So I got introduced to doulas just like being in the Philly kind of art space and like being in community. And I was like, that's really interesting. So long story less long. I was also like, doing the like lesbian thing. And I was like, I'm gonna go be with my lover, who I was in a tragic. It was a terrible relationship. We all have those. You know what I mean? Terrible, awful.
I've never had
So,
one. All of mine are amazing. That's why I have to.
So I was like, I'm gonna go because she lived in Boston or whatever. And I was like, I'm gonna move to Massachusetts. I'm doing this thing. But I knew in my head I knew the relationship really wasn't gonna work. But I just needed to see it for myself. Okay? I just need to go for myself. But when I went up there, I was like, before I even went up there, I was like, I'm gonna make sure that I find something that is just for me, if that makes sense. And so I found out about the Prison Birth Doula Project because I knew I wanted to be like to get into doula work, but I knew that I didn't want to work with the average population, I guess you would say. Yeah. So I started working with them, got accepted into that, moved up to Massachusetts, and became a volunteer full spectrum doula, working with formerly incarcerated people in substance abuse recovery, people actively using. And I did that for 2 years voluntarily. And then after that, I was just in it. I was like,
yeah,
but I don't know if I like went into it being like called.
Right. But since we're there, I think this is something that people don't think about and have no idea how many women give birth in prison and how many women incarcerated are mothers and how insane those numbers are. So can you just shed light on that?
Yeah. So like it's me, definitely
an important thing for people to know about.
Yeah. Like I think one of the things that like really attracted me to the work was yes, the aspect of being a doula and being able to advocate and do, all the things that I had like at least my initial imagery of what a doula was. But for me, when I realized the Prison Birth Project existed, I remember that moment of being like, I never thought about people being pregnant while they're incarcerated. It just never made sense to me. But becoming a Prison Birth Project doula, I was really exposed to how many people were incarcerated, were pregnant, not even just pregnant, but have children on the outside that they're trying to see, that they should be seeing on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. Their case managers, social workers being overworked, so not being able to see their children. Really like the whole, first of all, even the process of giving birth when you're incarcerated, right? Like depending on what they're in there for, they may have the ability to have their baby and not be incarcerated anymore, maybe going to like, some type of home, but that home has to even be accessible for kids. So sometimes that's not even a choice for people, right? But
Right.
then the other aspect is the person who has a baby and has to return right back to jail, right? And they're returning back like a vaginal delivery, they're returning back within 24 hours. C-section maybe 2 to 3 days, right? So imagining someone coming from being pregnant for all this time and the body transitioning, right? The physical transitions that are happening, the hormonal transitions that are happening, the mental things that are happening, and adding prison on top of that, right? Like it's a center of how I do this work. Like, because I just think about, even the survival and even like the idea of like, oh, they're in prison, they shouldn't be in prison, whatever the case may be. A lot of people are doing survival crimes, right? Like a lot of people are doing things so that they can do something for their kids, so that they can feed their children. A lot of people are dealing with major trauma, substance abuse, not getting resourced enough, right? Like there's all these things that
Right.
I am blessed to have been witness to and to be a part of, because it
Mhm.
really helped me to be aware of like the complexities of pregnancy and life. Like everyone's not just pregnant, white picket fence. I have this, I go here, I got this partner, this family member, this whatever. It's like people are dealing with some shit.
That doesn't end, right? Like that's generational. Like that's the thing, that it's the concentric circles of impact that we're not thinking
Mm-hmm.
about. That person's mental health who probably already has been strained
Impact,
and
yeah.
had a baby and going right back. I literally just heard a story. I'm headed to Iowa in a couple weeks to help them with their Black Doula Collective. And I heard a beautiful prison birth story with the support of a doula. And I'm probably gonna cry now because it was beautiful. And that I think also is really, really important, that you can have a dignified, respectable birth and be incarcerated and still
Yes.
have a plan for that baby to be with that the father, for you to come back to
Yeah. And it's
the
like,
there's
those stories are definitely those
and all
those are definitely possibilities that I really like love, like when that happens. And there's also like, especially being a doula and that system, we used to bring like snacks and stuff. We were able to bring snacks once a week, whatever the case is. But the prison didn't really like us, but we were good for their outside view, right? Like people to be like, oh, you have a doula program, right? But they didn't really like us. They were like, we don't want you to do this. We don't want you to do that. And I remember like going to the prison's orientation. So we had our own orientation, of course. And then we go to the one for the prison or whatever. And like the idea, like one of the major things that stuck out to me, and it's all different types of people sitting at the table, right? There's chaplains, there's volunteers for this, volunteers for that. Like, and one of the things that they're saying that was emphasized so much was like, don't trust them, don't touch them, don't hug them, don't, like it was all this like stuff where it's like, yo, this is like being touch starved, right? That people learn in COVID is like a whole fucking thing. But then like you have people who are pregnant and you're like, don't touch them, don't trust them, don't blah, blah, blah. And we're like, and we didn't follow those rules, right? We're like, come here, get some pickles, okay? Get some chocolate. Come here. I'm gonna touch your hand. I'm gonna touch your shoulder. I'm gonna give you a hug when I see you, right? Like, I'm not here to judge you for your actions. I'm here to like pour it into you and the child that you have coming. Like, because sometimes that's like our approach or our presence was the only form of like care and love, right? Like, and just even just the different things like when they get locked down and the pregnant people usually, if they're on lockdown or whatever, get some type of way of being able to walk around because they're pregnant and you need activity. But it was like not enough. And then like also like little things that people don't think about. How do you get all the nutrients and the things that you need from the food that you're receiving, right? Like, because what if you only have one piece of fruit a day, if that? So now we had a lot of people that were just simply constipated, right? Like it's just like all these things that people just don't think about. And I don't know, it just, that's the foundation of my work. Like that experience is a foundation of my work. I didn't go into dual work working for like learning from like a big organization or any of that. It was all like thrown in, this is what you do. And that's when I learned, like, yes, as a doula, you know, we have the magic tricks, we have the essential oils, and we have the this and the that. We, you know, have our bag of magic tricks, but there's nothing that beats presence. There's nothing that beats, I'm just going to sit with you, even if we don't know the answer. There's nothing that beats, I'm not going to judge you because you used during your pregnancy. There's nothing, like, I had a client that was like, you know, hopefully, you know, she's doing well, but, you know, have just went back and forth into use, you know, like, and when I met her, she had a baby while she was incarcerated. She got out, and I remember like a year and a half later, I get a text message, and I'm like, oh, who's this? And she tells me who it is, and she's like, you know, I'm pregnant again or whatever, but also I'm using. And it was just like, I was the only person that she felt like she could come to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's just, I don't know, people just, I don't know, we just, if you don't know, you just don't know. But when you know, you know. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's, I was just meeting with a new couple, doula clients yesterday, and you know, some couples are okay to hear that, yes, I have training in a magic bag of tricks, but I also just show up and read the room.
Yeah.
Because all you can really do, like, you cannot predict. And that's what's so hard about this birth work is people want to control, you know, and you cannot. And the more, to me, because more harm when we try to, you know, make a system and a license and a notebook and a, you know, like spreadsheets. Like, babies don't give a shit about a spreadsheet, and they don't calendar invites. They're gonna come when you want. And to me, the more we do that stuff, the more challenging it is, or the more the baby's like, I don't want to come in the world like that. Like,
because you're mentally, right, you're in this space of pressure. And like, I saw that even like expressed in when I was with my incarcerated population, because there would be like a trend of like people being pregnant for like 42 weeks. But a lot of it was the mental, I don't want to have a baby in here. Absolutely. I want to hold on to my baby as long as I can. Absolutely. Right? Like, I want to like do this when I feel safe. Like, safety is such a big factor in giving birth, right? It's like the mind and the body have to connect for things to really flow.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm like, there's so many thoughts and opinions. Yes. So many people that went to school for a really long time that still don't understand that. Like, just speaking to the person in labor when you walk into the room to talk about.
Yeah, when I was like long ago, like when I first had started, I had I think I was like doing some kind of like reading and stuff from Birth Arts International, and I think the head of Birth Arts International is Demetria. But one of the things that stuck out to me in those like early years, I believe there was something about like the how you look at birth, right? And it was kind of like a wise woman look, like perspective, and then it was kind of like this medicalized perspective. And so the difference was like, even if you're a doctor, midwife, doula, whoever, if you have like this more medicalized perspective, it's like this idea that everything fits in a little bucket, right? Like, this goes this way. This is, you know, this is early labor. It only lasts for this long. This is active labor. It lasts this long. This is transition. It lasts for this long. It should look like this. It should happen like this. And the idea is that if it doesn't align in this perfect box, that you have to rescue the person, right, from their experience. And then that comes intervention, it comes this, it comes that, right? It's like treating the birthing body as if it's just like this commodity that we, you know, poke and prod and we have to just get the baby out. That's the point of this whole thing. Where right. Like the wise woman perspective was like, you going with the flow, right? You understand that you're not rescuing somebody from this experience unless they need to be rescued, right? You're right. Understanding that this person will have emotional ups and downs as they move through. They'll have physical ups and downs as they move through, and all that is normal, right? So it's like, you're not going to like interject yourself. You're not going to rescue this person. You're not going to tell them that you know more about them than they know about themselves. Like, that's not any of it. It's, I'm going to sit here and be of service to you and assist you in this process and like move through knowing that your experience is going to be different from anybody else's experience. Even if I've seen this 1,000 times.
Right.
Yeah.
Or that if that mom, that person has 5 kids, the sixth can be completely different.
Yeah,
They're
so
all
it's like going into it being
yeah,
like every situation is individual. No matter if someone had 20 kids, no matter
yeah,
if you've seen birth 20,000 times, you still are not the expert of what's going on.
correct. I experienced that with my second. Everyone was like, "It should be so fast. It's your second." I was like,
Yeah.
"I and I have OP babies. Like, shut up. Like, it's not
Yeah.
helpful. Well, why is
Hmm.
it taking so long? You think I want to be in this labor at this
I
long?
know.
No, I don't. Hey, uterus, you want to just like
I
cervix? You
know.
want
And
to
as a doula, when you're in that space and someone's making those comments, you're like, your eyes are like fire towards them. Like, really?
It's literally the most unhelpful thing anyone can do. It's like, I don't know why you're not being like everybody else. You're like,
And it's like, even when people like, because of course, being a doula, like go through those experiences where people start getting impatient or they start like expressing that they're tired or whatever. You're like, no one is going through more than a person who's having a baby. Like, so we have to all just hush our mouths.
yes, please.
Like, if you're not going to be positive, remove yourself from the space because
Yep.
no one in this space is going through more than this person who's having a child. They're tired.
Yeah.
Like,
Stressed, excited, everything. Like, they're not
yeah.
working a shift. You know what I mean? Like, for it to- trust me, I wish it was just my births were like a shift. I wish. I'm serious.
I'm just gonna clock out now. Job is
Yeah,
done.
I know exactly. Okay, so many things. I want you to talk about. I always ask people what are they giving birth to next, but you just gave birth to a whole book and an author now, to
Hmm.
add to your many crowns. Can you speak about that experience and that journey? Because I think it's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. It's pretty wild. I think it's even like now looking back at it, it's been. I feel like it's a birth process. So you like have your book. It's this idea, whatever. You can count that as like the sperm and the egg, like whatever you got going on, right? So like, and then maybe it like becomes an embryo and it starts to grow and blah blah blah. And you're like, I'm writing the book and I'm moving through it. And like for me, my writing process is very like I really can't be home, if that makes sense. Like I need to be like I usually like to go into nature really because I like the way that I write is that I write very like focused. Like I can't write like for 4 hours and then go do other work. Like that's not gonna happen. Like I need to be like in this space, let go of everything else. Like go into like now that I like you watch movies and they have writers or whatever, and a person's like I have to go to the cabin so I can like write my little thing. Whatever. That's me.
Okay.
I gotta go. Gotta go. I gotta be in nature. I gotta like because I have to like be in a space where I can expand. Like my thoughts can just be open. Like I can just, like it's like a surrender and a release that has to happen for me to like really get into my bag. So there was that. I mean, that was like writing the book was probably about a 2-year process. And I had like my writing coach that was very helpful. And then I got signed to my book agent, Laura Lee Mattingly. And then I got signed to my publisher, Chicago Review Press. And then you have to like, you're working with these people and you're like, okay, this is what I'm doing. And I was very grateful because the people that I work with, Laura Lee, Kara, they didn't want me to change my book. I had talked to some other people, other book agents who have very famous clients, right? And I was like, first I was like, wow, you're interested in me? Like that was the thing. But it was like also talking to them, they wanted to shift the way that I wanted to write, And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. So that was a process of moving through. And then also my book was actually supposed to come out in the fall of 2022. But in the spring of 2022, I told my editor, I was like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. We need to push it back. Because my whole thing was I never wanted to write my book under stress because I felt like that would read in the book. You know what I mean? Like, I felt like energetically that would be picked up on. And I
Yep.
didn't want that. So that's why it was always important to me to like be in a space that makes me feel good, be open, be not writing under stress, if that makes sense.
Totally.
So yeah, I pushed it back and it came out in March. And now it's been a few months of not only it being born, but me seeing like how people are like liking it and moving with it and how they're feeling about it. So that's been an interesting experience because it's kind of like you putting your baby in school, right? Because first you have your baby at home, you're like, maybe a couple people know my baby, whatever. Then you put them in school and you're like, I know this is good for you, but like, like I miss when you were just mine, right? Like,
I love
like
that.
that's how, yeah, like, but that's like how it feels where you're like, oh, my book is now in school, right? And look, it's in literal schools, right? And it's in places that because like your book becomes its own entity. Like I was talking to Lama Rod Owens and we were having that conversation how like when you write a book and you release it to the world, it's now its own entity, right? It takes on a life of its own. You can't control who reads it, what they think about it, how people like take it in. Like you can't control any of that. So it's been lovely and really surprising sometimes to even see how people interpret things, right?
Yeah.
And seeing how like I'm like, oh, like I remember when I wrote it and I was thinking about this, but also I see how this applies to you and your life,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and some people are like, I did another podcast and they're like, this is some of it was like, they were like, it's helping me learn how to parent. And I'm like, oh, I never thought about it that way, right? So it's just become its own entity that surprises me, even though I wrote it.
I love that though. I mean, that you can learn from your own work.
Yeah, like doing in person, like I've been doing a lot of like in person, like book events and, virtual spaces. And when people are like, speaking to me about what parts landed with them or what felt important to them or whatever, it's just like, I'm like, oh, like, wow. Like, like even
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, like, or how it was hitting them. You just never, I don't know. It's not like I underestimate myself in the sense of like the work that I'm doing, but I think I do a lot of my work like very like isolated, very like in my bag, like you know what I mean. So when other people are like, this impacted me this way, I'm like, oh shit, like oh, okay, like like I'm like wow, like I have that privilege.
Yeah.
That's wild. So yeah, it's just been really, really a really beautiful and wild journey.
What is your hope? I mean, I know clearly it's taking on more form and impact than you initially realized, but like if you said like my goal with this book is
Yeah. My goal with this book, at least today, what I feel, um, is I really want like in this work of like reproductive justice, reproductive health, and all this, like it's so common for the people who are in this work, whether they're doulas, midwives, whatever the case is, to operate in deficit. Um, and that deficit not just being financial, because people are, obviously sustainability in this work can be a whole thing, but just like emotionally, like just, operating in deficit in that way. And so my hope is that people understand that when we operate in deficit, we are the impact that we're making in this work as a collective is not as big as it could be.
yep.
And like if people do the work on themselves, because I feel like in this journey, right, like in this work that we do, there's been this messaging of like if you take care of yourself, there's some type of selfishness that comes in that. Or if
Mhm.
you take care of yourself, you are not the most you're not the strongest activist, or right. It's like this idea of like the more that you don't have and the more that you show for this work, the more committed you are. Right. And like that idea,
Has to go away. And a
yeah, it
lot
has to go away.
word in any kind of activism, like I was speaking to someone, in gun violence, but I'm like, I feel because you have a sense of loss of losing someone and then you've picked up this work that you can't win and be whole. And I'm like, no. So you don't need to live every day with survivor's guilt. You don't need to live every day
Mm-hmm.
in deficit or in lack or, and so for me, for our people in particular in this, it really is in every space, but healing that trauma, doing that internal work that is absolutely rooted in slavery, and knowing that you are very worthy of an abundant mindset and lifestyle.
That part. And I think like just like
Abundant.
we talk about capitalism, right? Like being something that takes us out of our bodies and we're just like hustle, 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 like so much so that we're not, we're not aware of what's going on in our internal landscape. I think activism sometimes can work that way too.
Yeah.
Right. And because it's more purposeful, right? Because it is for the good, people still kind of get lost in that and even utilize it in a way to avoid their own trauma. Right. And like
Mm-hmm.
for me, I'm like, I want you to do the work on you. Like, I'd rather you sit down for a year and
Yeah.
work on you because for the collective, like the things that we have to work towards, we need people to be resourced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need
And
that. So you
whole.
working in deficit is not a benefit.
No, it actually, it's a sensitive topic, but, I love for us to connect. I can say I'm a connector and a bridge builder. That's something I'm good at and enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
For lack of a better explanation. But what I'm identifying a lot of times, the hindrance for connectivity is that internal work that hasn't been done, right? That those people have not arrived at an abundant mindset and may have an abundant bank account. So they don't always go together.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
You might have a
Mm-hmm.
person that's very, abundant in spirit and not in stuff, and
Yeah.
then versa. So it could be a mixture of all the things. But bottom line, I think there's a lot of hiding that happens. And then there's a lot of dissension that happens because there's internal pain. And maybe I don't know that. I was always the kid who's like, I don't know what that means. Like, what does that mean? But most people want
Yeah.
to act like, oh, I know what that means. And I'm like, well, if you don't know, you don't know. Like, you're not supposed to know
Yeah,
everything. Like,
learn something. It's okay. Like,
right.
whatever. But I think too, like what you're saying is so important because I've had like in the last, I mean, over time, but especially like in the last year or so, like I had conversations with, birth workers, especially people of color. And they're like, a lot of times, for example, in doula work, obviously we're focused on like maternal and perinatal health disparities. And we're focusing on these things very rightfully so. Right.
Right.
But like, I also hear like a lot of birth workers being like, I also want to focus on joy. Right. But they're
Yeah.
like, when I put an event together that's focused on joy or put a thing together that's focused on joy, I don't feel like people turn out the way that they do when it's about trauma. Right. And I'm like, that's a thing to think about.
Totally. Yep.
Right. Because it's like, yes, we're doing this work to like obviously, make impacts on these issues. And those issues are very important. But we also have to balance that with joy. We also have to balance activeness with rest. Like all of this is it's a cycle. Like we have to be completed, right? But we can't lean into the deficit, the trauma, the this, right? Like we have to be able to lean into the joy. Like there has to be that balance. And I just
Absolutely.
want people to be able, like if I could think about a goal for people to individually be able to create that balance, because then that allows in what you're talking about, like the space for nuance, the space to listen to a perspective that's different, right? And not be traumatized or triggered every time. It's like, like it just opens up this expansion, right? In a way that I feel like is super important for the way that we need to move to do the work that we want to do.
And we must not work in silos, and there is no competition. Like that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm. You don't work in silos when you're feeling joy, though. You don't work in silos when you have done your internal work, right? Like you can cross over into another branch or audience and take what you need to take and leave what you need to leave, right? And you can understand that maybe this experience is not going to be, we're not going to be understanding of each other in every facet, but there's still something for me to learn here and bring back to my community so we can go do the thing, right? But if we're only working in silos, it limits our education, our access, our resource, our abundance. And like, that's what I would just like, if I can do that one thing, I would be like happy as a clam.
Yep. And who doesn't love clam chowder? I mean, just
exactly.
to keep Massachusetts thing full circle. It was super hot. I was in Martha's Vineyard last week and I'm like, it's so hot, but I just want clam chowder.
I know I have to come. I have to do the Martha Vineyard thing. I've never done it, and I know
It's a
everybody
whole
there.
shit, but I will be your partner because it can be overwhelming. You're like the ferry to the what to the flight to the where. And why is this old rental $1,000 a night? It's a but it's great. And it has a lot of history. Positive joy is history for our people. Um, let me ask you this: what was your biggest push moment? Like whatever comes to mind
Define
first.
push for me.
Just an uphill, a challenge.
Uphill.
Like what was
Hmm.
your biggest push moment that you came through to the other side?
Ooh, that's like, ooh, child. I mean, because I think like in my brain, right? Like I feel like even in this moment, I feel like I'm in a push moment. Like I feel like right now, anytime you go through transitions or whatever the case is, it can feel like a push moment. And I don't, I feel like I'm going to get to the other side of my current transition, and I am getting to the other side of it, but I think most of it's mental, right? So I think, and maybe many of us will be able to like, connect to this, but like I'm currently and I'm always in some form like pushing through the idea that I have to take care of everyone. Right? Like I
So
have like as a
curvy.
leader, as a family
Yeah.
member, as an entrepreneur, as whatever signs, like especially when you have like that leadership personality, like that's me. I want to be in leadership. Like that's just who I am. But I think like there is also this generational kind of thing of being a woman and being a Black woman, like being in spaces like historically, like intergenerational, where we just take care of everything and everyone, and oh, someone needs this over here, well, I'm gonna figure out how to get that for you, or someone needs that, like to the point, right, where we put ourselves in lack, right, because we're always choosing to care for others before we care for ourselves. And then we do like maybe like the little things, like I'm gonna go get a massage over here, or I'm gonna go, take care of myself in this way. But I think for me, I'm pushing through like what is self care beyond that? Like what is like a true boundary or a true like lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
Of being more discerning about what I really have to take care of and when, right? So
And
it's a
who's,
big push moment for me.
so as a leader personality, what my new question is that I will offer to you or share, what are you pouring? So you know what you're pouring.
Mm-hmm.
What are the people around you pouring?
Mm-hmm.
And are they pouring? Now, there may be people you choose to pour into that have nothing to pour. That's fine.
Of
But
course.
you need to be discerning about because they might give in a different way. They
For
might give
sure.
that joy, that appreciation, fine. But I think the what are you pouring, the boundaries, like, and I think it's like, how do you need to be loved? And are the people around you loving you and pouring into you in the way that you need?
Mm-hmm.
Not just because they're blood or they've been around a long time and spent years
Yeah,
or
for
whatever.
sure.
Because as those transitions happen, as that expansive growth happens, especially in a leadership role of propelling forward with change and growth and inner work and outer work and all of that, not everybody's gonna like
For
need.
sure. And I think too, it's like also like allowing, like I've been working for myself now since 2018 or something like that. Building organizations, like really just going hard. But I think like the push moment has been me accepting that I want to do less,
Yes.
right? And like that can
Amen.
be, and I'm like, and that's okay. Like it could be a season. Like I'm planning right now to go on a sabbatical for like a few months. And it's like that was like a thing that had to really like push, like it's okay for you to take some time off, not a week. Not, it's okay for you to take 3 or 4 months off and just focus on you. Like there's like you have like in the sense of like telling myself like, you have done enough, right? Because there's always in this work more to do. It never ends, right?
No.
It never ends. And I think a lot of this work, especially reproductive justice, has historically been on the backs of people of color, especially women and femme folks, right? So it's like being like, it's okay if I step away. It's okay if I take a break. It's okay if I go, if I lean into the season that I'm in and know that I don't have to be the expression that I've been for the last 3 years or whatever. So I think like just that kind of thing is like, for me as a person who's go, 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 who's build, 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 who's like, I see something and I have a solution in my head, that has been like a major push.
Yeah. No. Keep pushing through to the other side of it. Yeah, I think what it is we get so used to being depleted, especially as Black women. Like, we don't know anything else. And what I've also realized as a Black woman and a caretaker and solution and person and leader,
Mm-hmm.
we're in control. So I have this thing where I'm like, women do have egos because we have a plan, right? That's ego.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so also when you're in that driver's seat of change and whatever have you, like, there's nothing coming in. It's all coming
That
out.
hurt.
That doesn't make sense. But in an energetic and a heart space, how are you ever vulnerable to ever really experience true care or love if you're the only one doing the loving and the caring?
Exactly. But I think like that point that you made about like when you're in that driver's seat and you're doing the thing, especially like leadership and this and that with the woo, it's like very little is coming in, right? And like very little is coming in the sense of even your internal conversation with yourself. Like, what do I like? What do I want to do? What's the next thing that I want to like? Even that is not
Yeah.
coming in because you're always like, I gotta do this thing. I gotta look ahead. I gotta make sure the team is this. I gotta make sure the team is that, right? And like, so that creativity, that space of like learning, and sometimes like even when we're talking about this coming in, like to kind of give people context, like it's not just like learning something. It's like in rest, a lot comes in, right? Downloads come in, messages come in, like, and you don't get that when you're just go, go, go. You can't hear it. You can't hear it. You can't feel it. You can't see it. You can't anything because you're like, I'm going. So like that choice of like, I'm just going to stop and pause and let shit happen. Like,
Yeah.
and let shit in.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a part of that is scary, right? Because you're like, what is it? Am I gonna have an identity crisis? Like, am I gonna like, am I gonna have like some moment that I'm like, this was not what I was expecting, right? But the other part is like, reminiscing on those times where you're like, oh, when life was simpler and I was able to just be creative and I was able to dream, and now I've had that time and a lot of my dreams have come true, right? And I'm grateful, but what's next?
Right.
Like that's like that what's next is like, I need to sit my ass down to figure that out.
Right. Right. So I want everyone to know what all you have, how we can support you. I'll just say both and then you see what comes to you first. But like what all that you do, because it's multiple crowns, and how we can support you, and the final, like in closing, like what do you need? Because I think that's a question that puts you in a space of vulnerability. So just I think it helps to say that out loud.
As far as far as like what I do, like I mean I do a lot. I run my businesses, my nonprofit, my BADT, my doula training organization. I do business mentoring, I do teaching, I do this, right? Like I also like I don't know, I just love talking to people. Another thing that people don't know as much is that like I've been really focusing on, I'm currently in this chaplaincy course. So I've actually been talking a lot with people about like spirituality and like how that comes into the work. And like, so I love conversations like that. So that's something that I do. And like conversations about liberation and like, what does it mean? And how does it, like, I love that. Like, I'm a Sagittarius too. So I'm like, give me the philosophical like stuff so that we can like, like
Just to get, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like I'm like that really like feeds me. I'm like, so your liberation, how does that feel? What does that look like? Where does it come from? Like, like I'm that those conversations fill me like 1,000%. And then when I think about, you can always just go to my website and be like, what is this? What's she doing? SabiaWade.com. And then other things that I do, or no, other things that I need.
Mhm.
I need people to celebrate my rest. Like, and whatever that looks like just celebrate it. You don't even have to contribute to it if you feel ever so nicely. Sure, love a gift, right? But like just celebrate it. Like the ways I think, like especially for Black women specifically, like people are very celebratory of the things that we do, right? The
Right.
accomplishments that we have and whoop de woo, and that's very great. But also like root for me when I'm doing nothing. Like like root
Because
for
it's
me
hard
when
for
I'm
us. It's very
Mhm.
hard to turn
It
down.
is.
Yeah.
It is. So it's like root for me and like encourage it and like contribute to it in the ways that you can. And when I say contribute, it can be like you're doing a good job. Like you don't have to be
Go have
nothing
fun.
wild.
Put that
Yeah.
phone and close your laptop. Like
Yeah. Like,
go take a nap.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think the thing that I would also say is like, just to not just, but to honor my humanity, right? Like to not see me as a machine, to not see me as the all being, all knowing, because sometimes that's not complimentary. But sometimes it's like that's not like nice. Sometimes you're like, there's a lot of pressure, and I don't know the answer, so I want to be humanized, right? And I think that's been something that like in the last few years of like doing this work, like always trying to like make sure that people have a grounded perspective of me being human, meaning that I make mistakes. I have bad days. Sometimes I know the solution, sometimes I don't. Sometimes I try something out, it doesn't work. Like that kind of thing. Cause I think that sometimes can be my struggle internally is that I see myself as a machine, right? I'm like, get up, go, do the thing, then you do the next thing, then you mark this off the list, and then you do this, and then you do that, right? So when people are like, girl, you don't need to do everything. I'm like, oh, humanity. Right? Or like when people like, take me off the pedestal I didn't ask to be on, I'm like, oh, humanity. Right? So I think it's just like that's what I need right now. Just to like be honored and appreciated and loved and doing much of nothing and just being human.
I love that. I love that. Because you're other all the time. Like you and I have that in common. We're other, and that's been our existence, which is what it is. And I believe it's safe to say you're a Sag, so I think I can say this. You're confident in that otherness. And with that comes pressure, weight, responsibility that we own. And
Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to always feel the otherness. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
No, I
you can't let your guard down when you're always in that other space, right? When you're just like in this ethereal, everyone like you're like I can't let my guard down, and like sometimes like especially I think as an evolved Sagittarius, because I think when you're younger, at least for me, you're like, yeah, I can do it. Because Sagittarius are known for being like confident and like maybe a little too confident, right? But like, but I think like when you kind of evolve into that space of realizing like I actually need spaces where I could like let my guard down. You're
yeah.
like, I want to be celebrated for my otherness, but I
Yeah.
also want people to remember that like there is a level of vulnerability that I want to be able to practice,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't practice the vulnerability if it's always this level of perfection that has to be held.
Yeah. My very dear friend is a Sag, and like I'm always the one that can kind of, because I'm a Pisces, get it out. I know you have feelings in there. Like you might have to curse someone out for me to finally get you to cry, but like you have feelings. And that's been
My
her work.
mom is a Pisces, and I'm like, girl, do you have a feeling about everything?
Yeah, we do. All of the
I
feelings.
know, but y'all also get spicy though. Y'all also get spicy if y'all feelings get hurt. y'all can be real.
Or we could just we what people don't realize is you get cut.
Oh no, for sure. My mom, as I was growing up, like cut, like okay, it's not working. We
Oh,
can
and
just cut.
it's done. Then there's no like I didn't do high school. I was just like, oh, we're done. Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, wait, what? She ain't even gonna argue with me? Because I'm like a
Yes.
Pisces actress, so they were waiting for the fight.
Yes, my girlfriend she's a Leo sun, but a lot of her everything is in Cancer. And
Oof.
I
Yeah.
told her, I was like, if I would have known that you had this much Cancer in your chart, we probably wouldn't have dated. But I didn't know till later on. But however,
It's good for you.
through her softness and vulnerability and emotions, it has definitely influenced me to be like, maybe I should practice some of that. But like Sagittarius, we're so like mechanical in our thinking that we can't
Yeah.
just practice it. We have to think about like, how do I practice it? What do I do next? How do
Exactly.
I, it's like,
I love that. Okay, let's see the book. We need to see the book. Yes, it's the whole thing that everyone's gonna buy at anywhere they want, right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
and
it's
all the
also available on audio for folks that benefit from that format.
amazing. Well, I feel like what are we gonna do together? I think we need to do something.
We do have to do something together. We do. Like for real.
Do you know what that
So
thing
we
is
have to
yet?
think about it. Hmm?
Yeah. Okay, let's open for that download.
Yeah,
of
let's
your-
think like spring of next year though.
Yeah, not tomorrow. Mm-mm.
Yeah, I'm like, cause I'm about to
Yeah, you check
be,
it out. So
yeah.
what does that look like? Like you're going to just unplug completely or
No,
unplug
I'm
certain
really unplugging completely because I think like that wouldn't even be good for me. Because
that would
I think
you'd be
it's more
like,
so me being. So I'm planning on probably going to Costa Rica for a couple months. Um, Coming home in December, and then probably January, February, probably going to a couple other places that I've been wanting to go to and haven't gone to. It looks like so I have my Substack. It's at birthneoterrace.com, but my Substack I'll still be writing because I find that to be something that pours into me. I'm a
okay.
writer, I guess. Okay. But like but like so I'll be doing like some things, but I'm also like, I'll probably like post on social media, but it won't be like I'm not doing work. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like
You're
my
gonna
team is
share your
set up.
humanity, girl.
Exactly. So it was like, and my humanity needs to like wants to stay connected to my people. It's just like I don't want to do work. I don't want to be I want to like create like with ease and with no schedule. I want to like
Yeah.
wake up and not be like, I have 10 meetings today. Like I want to like have space, to just like be, but also still do the things that pour into me. And I don't think like I'm a person who could just lay on the beach for 2 months. Like that's not going to work for me. So there's things that I'm going to be doing for myself,
I love it. I'm here for it. I celebrate that creative
Thank
environment
you.
of rest and freedom. It's just the freedom, right? I mean, I get that.
It's a freedom.
I am an artist, absolutely, but I don't until recently didn't realize how much of an artist I am. Like even for an Instagram post, I'm like, I can't just make it. It's not because my hair is a mess and the house is a mess or the kids are loud. Because I'll make posts if the kids are loud. I don't care. But it's like I need to be inspired. And I think when I say that, I'm like, that sounds so cliche.
No, when I pop on live on Instagram, I have to be inspired. I don't have a schedule. I just go on because now this thing
Yeah,
happened. I feel inspired to
feel all
talk.
this pressure to like churn it out. And I'm not I think you've probably gleaned enough from what you know of me. Like that's just not my vibe. Like I have to just be open. And that's just all I know how to do. And so either you like it or you don't.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. You're gonna get one version of me.
That's what my partner said. She was like, "You are who you are, no matter where you're at." And I'm like,
Oh yeah. Right.
like, what? I don't. What are
Trying
we
to make
talking about?
a little bit less if I know
Yeah.
there's kids around or something. But that's
Yeah.
it. I'm from
But I
Oakland,
think
baby.
that's part of the work, right? Of like also like humanizing ourselves is like just showing up when we can and showing up how we can and like not
Yeah,
being super like, primped and whatever. It's just like, this is what you're going to get because this is where I'm at today. And I think that also encourages other people
to
to
do
be
it.
themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, with that, I'm gonna you can let me know where you are in Costa Rica if you get bored. Number one.
Mm-hmm.
And two, let's absolutely make a pact that by the end of October, we will plant seeds and like fertilize an egg or something.
1,000. We could do
Yeah, let's
that.
fertilize an egg by the
Yeah,
end of
we can
October.
do that because I'm like, we plan it for next year. We just got, and this is the time to
Yeah.
make plans because I'm like, yeah, like I'm open. Like I already have stuff on the schedule for next year, but like it's not packed. We don't got. Remember, we were trying to connect in different points, but it's like I'm doing this, you're doing that.
The
Like,
right time. It wasn't the right time.
yeah,
I
yeah.
believe.
So now it's time to really plant the seed, let it grow, and then do the thing.
Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to be doing a thing, y'all. Thank you so much for everybody. Please support her book, her work, her rest, and celebrate all of the fabulousness of Miss Sabia Wade. I'm so proud of
Thank
you. I've seen
you.
you, and I just love, I have see, I'm a Pisces. I have goosebumps because we have support each other and we do see each other and we didn't know each other from Adam or Eve. And here we are. And that makes me so happy. And it fills my cup to keep going to have moments like this. So I really appreciate
Thank you. Keep doing the things. I see you doing the things. I be watching. Listen, I may not be like, you gotta sometimes hit my phone like, hello. You might have to even text me again, hello. And I appreciate that. So look, cause I just be doing the most, but I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. I see
it. Brick by brick, girl, brick by brick,
it.
brick by brick. Well, thanks, boo.
Thank you.